When you think of grabbing your morning coffee and a donut or a bagel, where do you go? There's one place that's an iconic brand that has become a staple in millions of lives worldwide. This is All Request History. If you're curious about the history of, anything, you're in the right place. Subscribe here, put your request in the comments, and your story could be our next video on All Request History. Thanks this week to Jean-Pierre Macho from Clifton, New Jersey, for requesting the history of Dunkin Donuts. Now, it all began in 1948 in Quincy, Massachusetts, when a man named William Rosenberg opened a small coffee and donut shop. Originally called Open Kettle, Rosenberg's shop offered affordable coffee and donuts to nearby factory workers. In the first 5 years, Rosenberg became very successful. His philosophy was simple: great tasting coffee, fresh baked donuts, and quick, friendly service. He also pioneered one of the first known combo deals by offering a pay-one-price cup of coffee and a donut. He took notice of a common practice of his customers who dunked their donuts into their cup of coffee, and in 1950, he changed the name of the shop to Dunkin Donuts. To keep the name fresh and flashy, he dropped the G in the word dunking and the O-U-G-H in the word donuts. Question: where can you always get a free donut? The answer is coming up. Now, in 1953, Bill Rosenberg introduced a mascot to represent his company, Dunkin Donuts, and he called it Dunky. Rosenberg set up a franchising system in 1955 due to his popularity. Soon after that, he asked his head donut man, Johnny Spartos, to add a handle to the donuts that would be even easier to dunk. He created the handled donut, and it remained on the menu until 2003, when they discontinued it due to costs. Soon after offering franchising, Dunkin' Donuts shops became so popular that the Webster Dictionary added the spelling of the word donut as D-O-N-U-T by the late 50s, just as Bill Rosenberg had spelled it on his advertising. Now, here's a sad but fun fact. In 2019, the company changed its name to just Dunkin', dropping the word donut that was popular enough for the Webster Dictionary, but apparently not popular enough for Dunkin'. Now, in 1963, the same year Dunkin' Donuts opened its 100th shop, Bob Rosenberg became the CEO for his retiring father, Bill. Now the shops became a place for more than just coffee and donuts. It became a popular gathering place for friends, family, and community for a quick, quality breakfast. Bob focused on growing the franchise business and the menu. There were close to 1,000 stores by 1963 and growing each year after he took over. The first Dunkin' Donuts outside the U.S. opened in 1970 in Japan. Throughout the 70s, the menu was expanded for most shops. In 1972, a shop owner in Hartford, Connecticut, named Edna Demery, created a new neat way to save the leftover dough cut from the center of the donuts, and Dunkin' named the small treat after the cute Wizard of Oz characters, and the Dunkin' Munchkin was born. It's obviously not PC to call them that anymore, but they do still sell 800 million donut hole treats globally every year. Further menu expansion in 1978 added freshly baked muffins. Blueberry and chocolate chip muffins were a nice alternative to folks who didn't necessarily want to eat a deep-fried breakfast. In 1980, the shops grew bigger as customers preferred having a place to sit, hang out, and dunk their morning donut. Dunkin' has gone through many advertising slogans like "Always Dunkin'," "Your Dunkin'," "The Right Side of the Bed." They're all pretty forgettable, but most all of us remember Fred the Baker from 1984 getting up at 4 a.m. and muttering, "Time to make the donuts." For some reason, it seems like the most familiar advertising slogan might have something to do with dropping donuts from their name. The slogan now is "America runs on Dunkin'." When Bob Rosenberg was ready to retire in the 90s, he sold the company to Allied Domecq in 1994. They renamed themselves Dunkin' Brands and also bought Baskin-Robbins ice cream. Now in 1990, there was a coffee shop out of Seattle that was not even close to being a threat to compete with Dunkin'. It was called Starbucks. It only had 84 shops in 1990. However, 4 years later, they expanded to over 400, and by the end of the decade, there were more than 3,500 shops. You know by now that the competition offered a lot of different, and some would say strange, options. Dunkin' had to keep up with these changes. Although they still didn't offer a soy caramel venti iced mocha, they did add menu options to keep their loyal customers from going to the other side. They added things like flavored coffees, iced coffee, cold brew, cappuccino, and lattes. They also added food items, expanding to offering sandwiches, snack wraps, and hash browns. Now here's a couple of Coffee Wars fun facts. Starbucks currently has more stores in the U.S. than Dunkin'. Dunkin' shops are all franchises, where only half of Starbucks are corporate-owned and the other half are franchises. Starbucks is much more popular with students, while Dunkin' appeals much more to the senior set. And lastly, a large coffee at Dunkin' is $2 less and has 12% less caffeine than a Starbucks Grande or a Venti, a short, or whatever they call their 8-ounce cup of coffee. Now, the answer to our earlier question, when can you get a free donut? The first Friday in June is National Donut Day. Most coffee shops and bakeries offer free donuts. For sure, Dunkin' Donuts does. Krispy Kreme reports free donuts on that day as well. Starbucks? Well, I don't think they really offer anything for free, do they? In the 2000s, Dunkin' saw more growth and opened more than 11,000 shops. By 2002, Dunkin' offered 52 varieties of donuts and sells 6.4 million a day. In 2012, the Dunkin' app made its debut, and they increased drive-thru options, pickup-only service, and expanded Uber Eats and Grubhub options. In 2018, they introduced their own brand of K-Cup homebrewers and increased the take-home packaging options. In 2019, the first meatless breakfast sandwich was offered, called Beyond Sausage. Dunkin' seems to be much more popular in the eastern U.S. California has 143 Dunkins. Virginia has 244. New York has 1,431 shops. And Wyoming, well, they only have one Dunkin' in the entire state of Wyoming. There are close to 4,000 franchises outside of the U.S., from France to Bulgaria. Now, you might be interested in owning a Dunkin' franchise? Well, here are some numbers to help you decide. The startup costs of opening a shop are between $100,000 and $1.7 million. Now, that seems like a very large window, right? But it depends on where you want to open your shop. The $100,000 is likely to get you a shop in Wyoming. But to open a shop in Times Square, yeah, that's going to get you closer to the $1.7 million price tag. According to the Dunkin' website, to start a franchise, you'll need at least $250,000 in liquid assets, that's like cash, and a net worth of at least $500,000. By the way, if you'd like to stay current, there's a fun trend happening at the Dunkin' drive-thru. It's a pay-it-forward practice where a customer will pay for an order for the car behind him as a gesture of good faith. Most people continue to pay for the next person behind them, and so on and so on. Drive-thru employees have said that sometimes it gets up to 9 or 10 in a row before some cheapskate drives away for free. So, rather Dunkin' your donut in your coffee, pay for the car behind you, or just grab a cup at the drive-thru for your morning commute, you have Quincy, Massachusetts' William Rosenberg to thank.